All right, time for another 5-minute daily video. So I'm gonna try to be a bit more cognizant of time today and try to get close as I can to the 5 minutes. So, all right, I figure we would kind of pick up where we left off yesterday. And so where were we at yesterday, right? Big picture, overall stock market's in a downtrend. The NASDAQ is. And then, so this is kind of where we're at, right? This is the longer term downtrend here. This was the most recent. Remember I talk about momentum, right? So this is another reason why we would be potentially looking at a long instead of just staying with the downtrend. Okay. So on the daily chart, we can see that price was trending down pretty well. Okay, you're gonna have two periods of trends within trends, right? So smaller uptrends within the larger downtrend itself. And then you're also going to have, but generally when you have the longer downtrend, right, those smaller trends are going to be the strongest and the most profitable going with that trend, right? Just like when the trend's up, your daily momentum is going to be, that's where the value and opportunity is going to be, right? Because you have a long-term trend and things are going to take off on smaller time frames. That run is always going to be longer than it is going against it, right? So same thing here. So we have we are now on a downward trend, right? Momentum is to the downside, but that shift, the main bit of momentum is downside. That is going to shift, right, from time to time. So that's exactly what we're looking at here, right? So the most profitable trend and the easy ones are going to be playing things to the downside. So that's what we saw here, right? So had a nice little run to the downside, 15.2 all the way down to 11.6, right? So that's a solid run. And then so now what we've seen is this trend line has broken, this downtrend line is broken, right? That deviated from this long-term kind of trajectory, right? This is the sustainable course. The sharp sell-offs are not going to be sustainable. And so as that's going down through here, test, fail, new lows, lower highs, lower lows are created. So this is the trend structure, right? Once that kind of reverses, now again, it doesn't guarantee that anything is going to happen, but what it tells me is that, hey, momentum has reversed to the upside. We have now broken this downtrend line, especially after having these things here, right? So we made a new low, and this is happening around, I'm also being aware that this is happening around a previous area of support, right? So this has made a new low here, and then tested kind of this little congestion area here, failed to the downside, but was not able to get any more momentum beyond the lows of here. So this is important, right? This right here is showing us that, hey, sellers are getting weak here. Buyers are starting to come into the picture, starting to become a bit more emboldened, right? And then we got this kind of reversal here that's happened up and has broken this prior high, this prior resistance level, right? It's like a ceiling that it's got to break through. So now that this has happened, and not only that, so two things, right? We didn't break through in a big way. So it's not like there's some crazy momentum that's already happening here. We essentially broke out and then we've consolidated around this previous high. So what this tells me is that, okay, we're digesting the fact that, but we also didn't get rejected immediately lower. So it tells me this is kind of no man's land. So that's what's important to understand. Long-term trend down, and this is the nuances, right? This is what makes trading so difficult. Long-term trend is down. Short-term trend is up / consolidating, right? So now we're in waiting mode, right? There's essentially nothing to do except for if you want to create a trade thesis. And like we talked about yesterday, if you thought that we're probably going to get a retest of the highs, which again, momentum is kind of already geared towards the upside in the overall stock market, right? So my bet is, or my guess would probably be that we're going to at least try to head higher from here based on this reversal in momentum that should continue, despite any negative big news or anything happening today. If we get another big report or something that comes out that's super negative against the economy or against the future outlook or whatever, inflation, that could totally change the game, right? And so we'll get into all that because watching news items is a very important is a very important process. You don't want to be surprised by anything. You want to expect major market moving events before they happen. There's no reason to set up a trade just to have it reverse because of a news report that you weren't paying attention to. But so here, what we want to look at is every bit that this moves down lower to this area of support, right? This is going to increase our risk reward if we are going to get out of this to the downside if it breaks down, if we are trading long to the upside, expecting it to break out to the upside. Back up to this kind of like this downward trend line would be, in my opinion, would be a good target. We've got kind of this resistance area here. It's got to break through first. And then this one here kind of almost meets that. So I would almost say that this area in here would be final target. I wouldn't have any problem with pulling some money off of the trade here and then shooting for this here probably to exit the trade. Now, again, we're just using the NASDAQ as an example. You can use this for anything. But anyways, so there's nothing to do here except for potentially buy here if this is something that you were expecting to break out to the upside. You could also, because of the size of this, there's enough room here to let the market come down into this area here if it were to break down. And it could potentially break down here, consolidate before it heads higher as well. But at that point, we now have kind of negative price momentum going against us at that point. So again, it just depends on how you want to structure your trades. You know, set up something that's we call low risk, but if you think that you're reducing your risk because you're going to get out quickly here, but it ultimately goes up here after it broke down, that's not necessarily reducing your risk, right? So just different things, different nuances, different stuff that you got to pay attention to. And I look forward to continuing to go over this. And I think that we'll just keep this as kind of like the trade. We'll do this as like a just as like a simulated trade, and we can walk this out as far as like the way that I look at it, the way that I approach it, and whatnot. So we're at 7 minutes today, so I've already exceeded things by 2 minutes, but I think it was a good session. So, all right, have a good day. Happy trading.